Hey, good morning, folks. And as always, I'm going to sit here until somebody acknowledges that, hey, they can actually hear what I'm saying. And then we'll get started on today's, I guess it really shouldn't be a surprise, but certainly wasn't on the schedule, so we'll call it unscheduled. There we go. Thank you, Emperor. Kind of Q&A, but more let's talk about some of the stuff that happened yesterday here and on our forums. And yes, we have a new co-host today, my normal morning co-host of Venti Iced Coffee with at least one shot. So, why am I here? Well, it should be obvious to everyone at this point where I am here to talk about Magic. First, I want to say reaction on the forums, on Massively and other places has been great. As you guys who are our backers already know, we haven't had a lot of, oh my God, rage quitting. So far only kind of one maybe, with possibly, another kind of, maybe upset, but more importantly, a lot of support, overwhelming support, with some good questions and good concerns. So that's what this morning is about. This morning is about me addressing most of the major areas that people brought up on our forums. And, why here, versus why just on our forums or in IT? Again, that should be kind of obvious. We want to tell you everything that's going on with the game at all points. We have been very communicative, and here's another example. So let's start with, I think, probably one of the biggest concerns, certainly one of the biggest concerns, reagents. Now, what I've said about reagents is that they may be very useful, sometimes important in this system. Have we decided that oh my God, every spell needs a reagent, and all these reagents are going to be really tough to get, and there's some that are going to be almost impossible to get, and just like other games, that if you don't, get all your buffs, if you don't get everything you need in place, how can you go out into RVR? That's not our intent, folks. Do we think that reagents should be useful in this game? Absolutely. We want to give you guys options. Lots of options when you're working with your spells. Do we want to make the reagent system or the reagent component such a pain in the butt that people don't want to play, mages? No, that would be really dumb. We want people to want to play mages. I want to play a mage. And, if every combat or every couple combats you have to go and restock your reagents, that would be awful. And guys, I said the same thing to our archers on our forums when they were concerned, and still are concerned, about the idea of quivers and arrows. Look, if it's going to be fight and sit, that's going to be terrible. And we don't want people sitting around forever or throwing a couple spells and then having to go back to town. That would be bad. But is there a reagent part of this? Yes, there is. And, reagents will be gotten from raiding. They'll be gotten from mining. They'll be gotten from your crafters. It's not going to be something that you're going to have to go out and PvE forever. So don't worry about it. And let me also say, as I've said also from day one with any of our BSC ideas, or even before that on our forums, I quote the late and awesomely great Douglas Adams, don't panic. Next, will recharging be a big drag on the game? Recharging your, spellbook. The answer is similar to reagents. No, we don't want you to do that. We don't want you to go, hey, we're in this great, RVR battle. Pew, pew, pew. Oh, that's it. Sorry, guys. I got to take a 5-minute break and recharge my spellbook. I mean, that's no fun for anybody. It's no fun for me as a designer, and there is no, that isn't fun as well in RVR. So the concept of whether it is using the spellbook, using blood, using mana, in most MMOs, it's got to be balanced to the point of, yes, it is fun. Yes, it may also be a little bit of a pain at times, just like travel times can be a bit of pain at times. Healing and recovery from battle can be, a bit of a pain at times, but not to the point that people don't want to play the class. Spellbooks. Well, I'm glad that most of you, I think frankly almost everyone on our forums has said they are glad to see the concept of meaningful spellbooks come back. As per Recharging, we're not here to design something that is going to be awful, that is going to be a pain. If spellbooks can't make the game better, if their inclusion doesn't make it either more fun and more interesting, and work to help us balance the game, then, guess what? We won't put them in. Another good concern that people have asked about is, will there be optimal, combinations to the point that, everyone only uses a few spells. Now, again, I talked about this during the presentation. If we've done that, if that happens, then we've done something wrong, and then we will make it right. We do not want to spend all this time creating a spell system where it all boils down to, hey, screw 90% of the spells, you just need to use A, B, and C. So, can I promise that no spells will be more popular than other spells or spell combinations? Yeah, of course not. Can I promise that if it looks like, again, looking like metrics, looking like feedback from our players, looks like, feedback from our own team, that some of the combinations are not working the way we hoped, that will change them? Of course. Amount of time practicing spells. So this is a really good, concern. And, I, as always on our forums, tell people to express their concerns within the, of course, limits of our TOS, which simply, means be polite, be respectful, don't go all asshat on us because you think that we're doing something dumb. Just tell us, hey, we think you're doing something dumb, and tell us how you think you could make it better. All is good. But should there be any practice time, and what can be gained by the players if we put in practice time? A lot of you folks have worried about, well, this is an RVR only game, there is no PvE leveling, what are we going to do, during downtime? What are we going to do when we can't find a battle? And by the way, for all you Dark Age of Camelot fans out there, especially those who've expressed the notion that, boy, there was always action, in Dark Age, and anything that seems to, take away from that time in RVR would seem to be going counter to that game. I don't know what game you guys played, but I know what game we designed. And, I know what happened over the many years of Dark Age, where people were very, honestly expressing concern that they couldn't find fights, or they didn't want to have to do RVR, or they wanted to do, PvE, sorry, or they didn't, just didn't have anything fun happen that night. So, this is one of the many things we're hoping to put in that, you can do during your downtime. You're waiting for your friends to come on, or you can't find a good group, or you just found a new reagent and you want to try some things with it. This is meant to be fun. This is not meant to be a full crafting system so that, in order to play a mage, you have to play a crafter as well. And what I mean a crafter in this case would be a mage described as a crafter class. Now, for those who want to experiment, for those who want to practice, try different combinations, for those who maybe, again, have some downtime and would like to see if they can, maybe raise their spells a bit, or the spell's ability of power a bit. This is what it's there for. It will not be something where, hey, you've got to do X amount of research every day, or you won't be able to be a mage. That is not our intent. That would be foolish. But for the experimenters among you, For those who, again, simply want to see what happens when you put stuff together, this could be a fun, addition. And like everything else I've said, guys, if it's not working, we're going to take it out, or we're going to change it to make it work. This is a business. At the end of the day, we have to create something great that our players want to play. And if, whether it's my idea or Ben's idea or Andrew's idea, if it's not working and our people aren't happy, then we will make changes to it. This is not an example of a game that we are going to design solely for ourselves. I've talked about that during the Kickstarter, and I've talked about that afterwards. So we will do what it takes, whether it is to put new things in, to remove things that aren't working, or to change things to make them work, to make the game fun. Does this fit, this whole magic system, fit with the initial vision, of the game? I think it couldn't fit better I think this fits better than any other system that we've talked about here or that I've seen. What we're trying to do for you folks is give you a game where you are making decisions. You're making decisions about your race. You're making decisions about your class. You're making decisions regarding everything we hope that you will do in the game. And that, quite frankly, centers around RVR. And one of the concerns people have had on the forums is, well, how is this going to fit with an 8-man or a Zerg? Where you want to know your role, and the 8-mans, whether it was in Dark Age or other groups and other games, were picked solely on their abilities and how they all fit together. Man, I can't think of a better system than this one. These choices are yours. How you're going to make your character, how you're going to spec it out. This is going to be, up to you. And, our vision earlier, whether it was the Kickstarter or beyond, was of a game that was not a bunch of guys bunny hopping around going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, with their hotbar. So you're going to have to know more about your competition. You're going to have to know about the magic system, just like you're going to have to know about the archery system. You're going to have to know about the melee system. And then you're going to have to react accordingly. This is what I think most of you, at least those who've talked to me on the forums, what I've seen on other forums, the guys who backed our Kickstarter, I think want. They want a system where they are making decisions. They are reacting. This is not, the air system, it may be about spell interaction, but this is about, the entire game is about you folks playing smart. And I think that is something that a lot of you, and I hope almost all of you, have been waiting for. We got a lot of questions, actually even got one yesterday on Massively, about making this game more like a MOBA. And early on we got questions about, hey, RVR and PvP and all that. Why don't you just do a MOBA? This is not a skill game in the sense of manual dexterity. We've said that from the beginning. On the other hand, if it's a skill game because you guys have to think more, because you have to pay more attention to what's going on in combat, because you have to watch the other, players and react accordingly. That's the game we're making. Hopefully that's the game you want. So, starting to run out of time, so I'll try to get 2 more things in quickly. First, a couple guys on the forum said, some ways this is a limited system. And that just kind of blew my mind because, maybe I'm in a bizarro world, but I see a system where we can, as players, and I'll be right out there with you guys, especially because nowadays I actually have a decent connection to the internet, which I didn't have during the entire development of Dark Age of Camelot. We are giving you more options, whether it is in the magic system or the combat system and other systems as well, to build your characters, to watch and interact with players both on your realm and on the opposite realm,